Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. The relaxing days of summer are over and kids are back in school. Most children are excited to learn, but for those who struggle with reading, it may be a different story. African American students are less likely than their white counterparts to be proficient in literacy, especially black boys. In fact, one leading educator says that black boys who are not reading at grade level by grade 4 have only a 20% chance of graduating from high school at grade level. So why are black students lagging behind? Up next on Another View, what keeps black kids from reading and what we all can do to help increase literacy rates. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. We have two reading specialists with us this afternoon with tips to help the students in our lives with reading. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, we extend our condolences to the family and friends of Calvin Pearson, a champion of Black history who passed away this week. Calvin was the founder and president of Project 1619 Incorporated in Hampton, Virginia. The organization spent years correcting the false narrative that the first Africans to arrive in English North America arrived at Jamestown, when in fact they arrived at Point Comfort, today known as Fort Monroe. Calvin was instrumental in obtaining the historical marker that stands at Fort Monroe today. Telling the true history was important to him. Calvin Pearson was born in Newport News, but spent most of his life in Hampton. He attended what was then Thomas Nelson Community College. He attended Hampton University, and he graduated from the University of the District of Columbia. He spent his career working for the city of Hampton and retired as superintendent of Parks and Recreation after 30 years of service. He was active in the community, serving as the president of the George P. Phoenix Alumni Association and as a member of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, just to name a few. He also shared his wisdom and knowledge with us here on Another View. Funeral services will be held at First Baptist Church in Hampton on Tuesday, September the 16th at 11 a.m. And I'm sorry, that's September the 10th at 11 a.m. Calvin Pearson was 73 years old. We'll be right back. If you are an avid reader, you know that there's nothing better than getting lost in a good book. But sadly, there are too many children, and particularly African American children, who don't know the joy of reading because they cannot read or are not strong readers. Now that school is back in session, we want to give you the tools necessary to help a young one in your world improve their reading skills. Here to help us is Kimberly Brown-McCray, District Reading Specialist with Portsmouth Public Schools. Hi, Kimberly. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And Veronica Jones, she's a retired Portsmouth Public School teacher who spends her time now working with her grandchildren and other young folks to ensure that they enjoy the love of reading. How you doing, Veronica?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us, too. So you've only been out for 2 years, retired for 2 years. Do you miss it?
I do miss it, but not enough to get out of retirement. But I do miss this time of the year, the beginning. I do miss that a lot. The new ones to come through the door. You got those the tears, but most of those come from the parents. But but I do miss the joy of the beginning. I do miss that.
So let me just ask a fundamental question of both of you. And outside of a child maybe having a major disability, is there any reason that any child cannot learn to read? Kim?
There's no reason a child should not be able to read. Reading starts at the home, and I'll share a personal story. I'm a daughter of an educator, and so, of course, my love for reading was fostered probably at birth. So I just remember my mom taking me to the Portsmouth Public Library, and we would go down to the basement and check out books every Saturday afternoon. And so that fostered my love for reading. And as a district reading specialist, I foster my love for reading through the teachers that I support, through the students that I support, and as well as parents. I think that if parents see that their children have that love for reading, that it will generate their love through them as well.
And what about you, Veronica?
I love reading. I love children books, especially if there's a lesson behind it. If I can get something from that story, I'm going to pick that book. So, for instance, if I pick Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss is a good book for rhymes or pseudo rhymes, make-believe sounds, beginning sounds, basic sight words. And like Kim said, just having that joy for reading. My son
what was your upbringing in terms of reading? How did you?
Books were there. They were there. Like I said, we came up with different eras, so books were important. We threw the Dick and Jane. I love Dick and Jane. That's my favorite. I love Sally and Pup. I love those stories. I love those things that kept you involved. But if I could get a lesson out of what did I learn from that story? What can I use that to apply to, a skill? If it's nothing more than taking care of my pet Puffy, So that's my joy. To this day, I prefer to read children's books than to adult books. I just love children's books. And I love how they can teach a lesson. And if the lesson goes to something I want to teach the kid, hey, this is a perfect story that would go along with it.
I grew up in Baltimore, and at the library, when you hit 5th grade, you were allowed to check out 10 books at a time. So that was like a big deal. And I would go every Saturday, check out my 10 books, and sit on the couch with a bowl of apples and munch on the apples and just read, and just get lost in the stories and lost in the books. So why is it that so many of our African American children either don't have this role models to show them to read, or just don't seem to engage?
Could be lack of interest. A lot of times we have to tap into the interest of our children. And that's something that I was going to share about fostering that love for reading is tap into their interest. These are new generation of children. And so a lot of them are into the Marvels. Nobody reads Junie B. Jones anymore, but, we have to tap into their interests. And I think if we start there, the motivation for children to read will increase. And then that way, that will allow us to bring in other forms and genres of literature to expose them to have that love for reading.
So, but Vanessa, they say that a lot of kids, especially those who live in lower socioeconomic communities, may not even have books in the house. So does a small child or a child in school, do they need to see a book in order to even start to that process of learning to love it?
Well, they can learn to read in their environment. It's in their environment. So, for instance, they know the difference between Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's. No one sat there and said, hey, look, that's McDonald's. That they have seen it so many times. It's the repetition. It's the seeing it over and over again, and the resource. If it's something as simple as, this is a simple thing, a free thing a parent can do. Label the items in their home. Take the chair, write the word chair on there. Put the word wall on wall. Put the refrigerator. Put the word fridge or refrigerator on the wall. Make sure you have the first thing they need to learn how to read is their name. Make sure things are labeled with their name. Things that they see over and over again. That repetition helps them with their reading. And they keep it in context. So when they see that chair and they see the word chair out of context, oh, that word is chair. But if I see it on the chair 1,000 times, every time I walk past that chair and I see that word chair on that chair, I'm going to know that word is chair. And if the sticker or the name falls off the chair, wait a minute, that belongs to the chair. So it's the repetition.
Okay.
For the ones that can't, maybe they can't afford to go to the library, or they can't afford to get whatever, maybe it's transportation issues or whatever the issues are, there's always free resources. The library is the best place to go for free resources. Chesapeake, I'm not sure of all the other cities, but I know Chesapeake, they offer you free ABC Mouse. If you are a library member, all you have to do is put your library card in, get your free, your mouse. It's a website.
It's a website for kids to learn to
but it's
read.
all books are free. There's story time throughout the library time.
And obviously there's WHRO,
There's
public
WHRO.
media.
Yes, I was gonna say exactly. What was my next thing to say? Of course, because I have a friend every night. They listen to the stories on the radio. Or every single, that's her bedtime story. She listens to
Martha Reed.
Yes,
Yeah,
she listens to Miss Martha Reeds every night.
Martha Reed.
But
yes.
my grandchildren, I take them to the library. Even though they're toddlers, I start them when they were toddlers so they could be exposed. Not saying it's not in the home, because Nanny got it. And Mom and Daddy have it too. But I'm just going to make sure they get exposed outside their home. So no, I can't afford books, take them to the library.
So-
Free resources are there.
What though if you are a parent and you don't read? I mean, in other words, how do we get people to make it a priority? Either
I
one.
know
Who you
that
wanna start? Go ahead,
Veronica talked
Kimberly.
about that literacy-rich environment and just labeling. But if you're in the grocery store or just in your environment in general, strike up those conversations with the children to talk about reading, magazines, books. And she was talking about how having access. I know in Portsmouth Public Schools, a lot of our schools have free little libraries where they look like little birdhouses at the schools, and they are free.
In the neighborhoods.
In the neighborhoods.
In the
and
neighborhoods.
so if parents can reach out to those, the little libraries, and just grab books for the kids to build their own personal library. I know a lot of schools have parent-family liaisons, which is a great support to support those parents who may not be literate and aren't unable to read. And so that's a start there, because if we start there, then there's going to be that bridge of that bridge
They
is
can
going to be a
learn together.
connection, and they can learn together.
Right.
And if the parents do go to that little library and see a book that they want to read, and then that could be a family book they can read together. And so everybody's learning to read as a family, as a unit. And I was sharing with Miss Veronica earlier that family connection is missing when it comes to reading now. And so if we could have that love for reading amongst the families to come back, I think the success rate of our children becoming fluent readers is going to soar.
And like she said, we have to start with the families. If the families don't know, because just like I wouldn't know how to do your job.
Right.
Just like the parents don't always know how to teach their children. They depend on us to do it for them. So if we get have a time for the parents to come in, this is your time. Let me teach you how to teach your child how to read. Label the things in your household. When you drive down the street, hey, that's a stop sign. STOP. We can start the beginning sign.
Environmental print.
Environmental print, And when you go to the grocery store, they know their favorite cereal box. Make sure they can read those things.
So they can point things
They
out.
can point things out and do that way. If you want to do letter sounds or whatever, find something you're going to eat that's going to begin like tea, like Tyson. You got to find some, tomatoes. You got to go find some, some toast, something like that. Just make it fun. But parents don't know that. So we have to train the parents. So the parent liaisons are great. But if you don't know, you don't know. But those way we have to have resources to let the parents know.
How
we're out
soon,
here.
though, should you start? I mean, I
the
know
beginning.
that people read or talk to their children when they're in womb.
At the
So should you start from the very beginning?
Very beginning.
Yes, the very beginning.
Very beginning.
Very
You're
beginning.
always reading.
Always reading. And just remember that we are wired to speak. We're not wired to read. And so if a mother is reading in utero to her unborn child, that child is listening. And it makes a difference when that child is fostering the reading as a newborn.
Wow.
But yes, so we, when we're born, reading is a science now. It's all about the brain,
Right. Yeah.
with the science of reading. And so teaching children how to read, it's like we're reading sciences maybe, where we're looking at the parts of the brain that talk about the comprehension. And how that frontal lobe talks about that phonological awareness and the phonemes, those smallest units. And so It starts at birth.
Wow.
Yeah, my 1.5 can pick up a book because he to pick their favorite books. They always bring it. They have to sit on this knee. I don't know why that knee, but they sit on that knee. Even though he's only 17 months old, he knows this book because he's read it over and over again with Nanny, over and over again. So he knows what page the ball is on. He knows what page the dog is on. And I do incorporate sign language with my babies. So so that's another fun way to do. I just incorporate more with them. But when he picks up that book, he comes and brings that book to me, sits on his lap, he opens it up, ball. He's looking at me as to say, "No, don't you know where the ball?" And takes my
so
finger.
He's teaching you.
Right. He takes my finger and say, "Ball," But that's the beginning. Their interest, like she said, talked about the interest, things that they're interested in. Our boys love balls, so whenever there's something with a ball in it, there he is, and he's going to bring it. And that's the only thing in the book is the ball. That he's going to look for the ball. He's going to go back. He's going to do it again. He's going to do it again and do it again. But it's the repetition.
It's
the repetitions, the key to everything over and over again. And eventually, when he's old enough, he's going to be able to match his voice to that print. Even though I'm reading it to them, and like I said, that's another thing you're going to teach the children, especially the younger ones. As the parent is reading, she or he can just touch the words as they read. When you see it on TV, some of them have the bouncing colors on the words, on the caption. Use closed caption and do that, and the kids can start eventually listening to the story, and they're going to start recognizing the print, and their eyes will start matching in the words, and before you know it, they can do it.
Let me put the number out there, 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. How are you teaching your young people to read? And if you're a little bit older or you have an older student, how are you keeping them engaged in reading? We would love to hear from you. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Tony joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Tony. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
It's so funny. Like I told the person who pre-screened, I just finished having a conversation with my sister. I'm from Portsmouth. I used to substitute in Portsmouth. I did my first class at Harry Hunt on High Street. And that day, when I had the class, I asked a young man to come up and read to his class. I said, they your friends, but you tell them what I have to do today. And when I gave that young man that paper and asked him to read, I realized that boy couldn't read. But I stood staunch because I told myself, I am not going to have a child that can't read.
Yeah.
And when I went home to my two boys, I told them, my oldest one had just started school, Parkview, and what I did was tell him, and my other son started school 2 years later, so now, they still a pair doing what they're doing. And what I told them, I said, y'all have a meeting. You're going to pick one day a week to look at TV. The rest of the week, my TV ain't coming on because y'all going to learn how to read. And I started that from first grade until they finished high school, and both of them, all my children ended up in college. But that's what the mother has to do. That's another deal. Like you have to go get them underwears. Like you got to go get their food. You got to make it up in your mind that they're going to learn how to read.
That's
Absolutely.
That emotional
Tony, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate that. Do you guys want to respond?
No, that was just wonderful. That emotional encouragement that you were providing for that young man as well as your own children. And that's one thing to allow children to be successful in school and to be successful readers when we have that support. We always talk about academic support, but that emotional support is very important when we're working with our young children.
I want to ask you guys a question about the connection between speaking language that you learn and reading. Because in the African American household, there may, the dialect is different than what you would read in terms of what they call standard English. Going forward, what's the connection and how important is it, or what does the child have to go through? Because basically they've heard one thing their whole life, and now they get into a school environment and they've got a whole nother environment or another language, if you will, to have to incorporate.
Yeah, and I guess Miss Veronica and I can talk about that. It's the English language, how it's taught. We have the 26 letters of the alphabet, and we have the 44 phonemes. And so those all connect one together to produce words and sounds. And so I'll take, we have to teach the children the letter sounds.
Sure.
Sometimes the kids will say "b," but it's just "b," or they'll say "ah," but it's just "ah." And so we have to break that connection of what they know into what they need to know, of knowing how to pronounce the letter sounds correctly, so that it can be carried over into that print and into the reading of the words. And so it's like a little code switching. They may say something at home one way, but when they're in the classroom, it's taught another way, because the teacher has to teach the language that has to be taught within the classroom.
But, and I get that, but how then does a teacher who may not be as culturally competent in that area, how do they handle that? Or is that where the shaming comes in? Because we know that happens. Tony, the lady who just called in, talked about how she was not going to embarrass this child, in front of the whole class,
read
but
in front of the class,
right?
Because he could not read.
And I think that comes
that cultural relevance.
Yeah,
is kind of where we.
So I do. Several years ago, I had a coworker. They were working on sounds, and because of the dialect, and they were saying the sound the way they knew it, even though it meant the same. Like an example, "ba" and "pa," and those two. And all she could hear was "ba." She kept saying he's saying it wrong, but he was saying it correctly, because that's the way he heard it.
That's what he learned. Right.
So you have to teach the adults, the teachers as well, the cultural difference. And so I had to basically teach her it was a cultural difference. This is what he hears at home. This is what it's. But it means he knows his B sound. He's just going to say "ba," and you're going to say "ba," but he knows. But you have to know the difference, like you just said.
Is that taught when you guys were coming in through school, as you were learning to be teachers? Was that taught, or is it being taught today?
No, I was not taught that.
No.
It was just becoming a teacher. You taught what you were taught. But now that we are in a new generation, we have to look at the dialects that are at the home and know how to manage that balance of what they hear at home and what they hear within the classroom with the teacher. And as well as providing that support, that cultural relevancy of understanding that sensitivity is key.
Because a lot of times, if you shame a student in class,
and that's what we don't want to do.
Shame them. They won't. Then they're saying, "Well, okay, I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to go forward with that." There was a young man on CBS this morning. He was talking about, unfortunately, that horrific shooting in outside of Atlanta, and his teacher was one who was killed, and she was a math teacher, and he was talking, and he said, "I'm not gonna lie, I failed math in freshman year, and I was taking it again, but she never made me feel ashamed." And it just, that really resonated with me, because I think that that's so important for a child to continue to want to learn.
You have to make it exciting. I'll tell you a story. I had a little boy, bless his little heart, he just could not get the spelling test beyond 2 words a week. He could never get. But I taught them in math that each of those spelling words was worth 10 points. And so each day the kids would get the little spelling test, and they go through and they count how many words, how many points they would get. They'll say, "Oh, I got 10 rights. I got 100 or whatever." So little boy got 5. He said, "Oh, I got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And he would say, "Yeah, I got this." And the little boy went, 10, 20. Yes, I got 20. So we clapped and we cheered for his 20. It's about the esteem you put into the child. Yeah. See, he was so excited. So I always made a big deal. Whatever you got, whatever you receive, it. You didn't get 100, but you got 20. And that little boy was beyond excited, because
and
that's
did he continue to grow from there?
He continued to grow from there. But that excitement that we cheered for just his 20%. And I still remember that story. I know it's got to be 20 years ago, but it was just something in me that's like, wow, just the fact that he was so excited, because everyone cheered for his 20. When everyone cheered for the 100 and then 20, he was excited.
We have to be their cheerleaders.
Yes.
Even as educators, sometimes we have to take off our educator hat and just be sometimes the mom.
Oh, we always are.
The auntie, the grandmother. And that just will bring out the love that child may need to have that love for reading. It's just, I think about what Miss Veronica was saying about how, with the young man, and how she kind of cross-curricular there. You brought in some math and some
into
literacy.
literacy
and so
together. Yeah.
we know that math and literacy, you can't have one without the other. And so if their reading is not where they want to be, we have to find that happy medium there, because we want that love for literacy and love for math to have a connection.
Because as an adult, I just say, well, my left brain, right brain, my right brain, which is the creative brain, that's the one that took over. So there you go.
Yeah, we celebrate the small success. That's another thing, to celebrate the small successes. If it's nothing more than just reading your name. Like I was telling her, the last year that I taught, that was the last year, those kids came in from COVID. So those kids had not been in school since, no, their school year ended halftime preschool.
Wow, yeah.
So when those kids came to me, over half of them had never been in a public school before, in a building before. And so a lot of them, I was telling us about 7 of them did not recognize their name, could not even spell their names. And this is first grade.
So this is really, really critical that we start at home. Our phone lines are lit up, so we're going to take some calls. But if you're just joining us, we're talking about literacy and African-American students with District Reading Specialist Kimberly Brown-McCray with Portsmouth Public Schools, and Veronica Jones, a retired Portsmouth Public School teacher who still makes sure young children learn to read. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Tony joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Tony. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All of these suggestions and ways to implement are fantastic. However, I'm kind of unsure how these efforts and practices would be able to be applied to the deaf child.
Okay.
And I'm talking from infancy, up into pre-K.
Okay, let's see if our experts have some advice for you, Tony. Thanks for the call.
Good afternoon, Tony. I am a former special ed teacher. I've taught preschool special ed, and so that early intervention is key with your child that is hearing impaired. And so my suggestion for that would be to reach out to early intervention to see what family support can be provided for that, because we all want to be inclusive when we're including our children for that love of reading.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the suggestions about labeling. When you label, make sure you do the sign that goes along with the labeling. So if a chair, you're going to pick the word of the chair, you're going to put the sign language chair there for it.
Because that's what you're teaching the child.
Right. So you can use the visual as well, the word, the visual sign for a chair. And actually, when you teaching the word chair, you can actually do the sign as well.
Okay. Tony, does that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you. Take care. Let's talk to Demetrius from Norfolk. Wow, Norfolk is on the ball today. Hi, Demetrius. You're on the air.
Hey, thank you for having me. I just wanted to say thank you for the conversation, and shout out to Brother Rodney Jordan, who invited me to tune in today. I just wanted to plug a community resource, mobile reading clinic that helps families and students with unmet reading needs get access to one-on-one tutoring for free here in Hampton Roads, Joy Education Foundation. And we do exactly what we're talking about here on this call, making sure that all kids have access to support around foundational reading skills like fluency, word recognition, phonemic awareness. All of our tutors are trained here, and we also offer training for families who want to support at home.
Okay.
And so as we're talking about making sure churches can connect, this is a resource for any community organization or family who knows anybody. All of our resources are free. It's free tutoring, and we need to get our families and our students connected.
So, Demetrius, how do people get in touch with you?
www.joyeducation.org. dlancaster@joyeducation.org is my email.
Okay. Joy. Say it one more time so that our listeners can write it down.
And I will slow down. I apologize.
That's okay.
www.joyeducation.org.
Joyeducation.org. Okay.
Yes. And then my name is Demetrius Lancaster, and D Lancaster, LANCASTER at joyeducation.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
He tapped into those 5 pillars of reading. He tapped into those 5 pillars of reading.
Okay, so what are the 5 pillars of reading?
Comprehension, vocabulary, fluency.
Keep going.
the phonological awareness, the phonemic awareness. So he was tapping into all of those 5 pillars of reading. So thank you, Demetrius, for
and I'm thanking Demetrius for reminding me about the fluency. Old-fashioned nursery rhymes help with fluency. Don't take those away. Those Jack and Jills going up the hill and Humpty Dumpty, it helps the kids begin with their fluency. So sing those songs, do those rhymes over and over again. If you don't know who they are, what they are, Google them. but those, it really teaches fluency as well.
And that rhyming is key. Rhyming is key before you even teach the letters and the sounds, that alliteration and the rhyming. So that's really key when we talk about reading.
So what does texting do for reading?
Puts it on the back burner. It puts it on the back burner because even as an adult, when we're texting, I'll be honest, I don't use correct grammar sometimes. I would use LOL or IDK for I don't know. And so it's that imbalance where we have to, and then it goes back to that code switching, so that, I know that if I'm texting my mom, I can say LOL, but if I'm texting a colleague, it's going to be a difference how I am communicating. And so it's that communicating of how it's used appropriately and when we can turn it off.
But it is yet another form of communication, but it's probably not the one you want to teach first.
No, we do not want to teach that first.
Expand on that, Vanessa.
Veronica,
I'm sorry, Veronica.
No, especially the little ones. If you're going to teach them the text, teach them correctly. Yeah. If you're going to say I am here or I'm on my way, write I am on my way. Instead of the acronym they have for that, teach them the right way correctly. And then later on, for fun, let me show you how you can really do this. Whatever it is. Instead of writing, typing out, laughing out loud. Oh, the fun way to do it is LOL. But make sure they know the right way first.
Okay. All right. Let's talk to Robin in Newport News. Hi, Robin. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. I really appreciate your program and the topics that you cover.
Thank you.
Number one, I was a substitute teacher for the Newport News and Hampton Public Schools for 10 plus years. Number two, I observe African American parents with their children. My big question is, what are we modeling? What I have not heard in the discussion is our culture is addicted to devices. There are young Black kids who never see their parents pick up a book because their parents are on their devices all the time. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, I don't know what they're on, but that is not being modeled. In my home, I saw my mother lay down on the couch and devour a 500-page book in an hour. I saw that. For me, it's the learning language was really easy. I started reading to my daughter when she was 14 months old, Goodnight Moon. And I read to her every single night. And when she went to kindergarten, she was reading on a second grade level.
Yeah.
So I applied. We went in the grocery store. What color is this? What color? What do you see there?
Environmental print.
Environmental print.
I mean, it was really, really easy. And I see parents. I also take public transportation, so I observe what they do. The cell phone has become an easy babysitter.
Okay. Also. Robin, thanks so much for the call. I'll let our guests respond to that.
Robin, thank you for your comment. That's called monitoring screen time. Ms. Veronica and I were talking. We were just having a general conversation saying that, do families even sit at the dinner table anymore? And I'm going to say no. Yeah. Everybody's kind of been and running. And so, again, like Robin said, technology is an easy babysitter. But we need to stop and take that time to monitor the screen time. Even as adults, we need to monitor our screen time and pick up a physical book to turn those pages. And if we model it for the children, then they will see, oh, well, mommy's reading a book. Or bring that child over with you while you're reading, whether it's Family Women's Day magazine and it's something that's a Crayola crayon ad. Have that conversation with that child, but we have to be their first role models.
Yeah. Plus, that also it forces us to engage with our students because you can sit around and everybody's on their device and nobody's talking.
Yeah. Nobody's talking, and I think that's what society has gone to now. Nobody's talking, and as I observe classrooms, the children are not engaged because they know how to I guess, be alone because of the screen time. And so there's like that lack of engagement, and that goes along with building those relationships with their peers as well, because they're used to having that iPad where they're just going about their business. But I think if we are there, we have to be their first role models.
You want to add to that?
Like you said, the modeling is important. So even if you pull your technology out, is it a book? Could it be a book? Yeah. But it's something about turning those pages and seeing those pictures. Like when Lennox goes, he sees that ball and he sees that dog. That's important. Whereas on a tablet, as much you won't get a chance to touch. Come on, Nanny, touch the dog. It's not personal.
Right.
But having that physical, turning the pages and getting a chance to go through each page and talk about what's going on. I think I can say engaging with your child.
So in the beginning, I read a stat from, and I know I'm going to mispronounce his name. Kunjufu is his last name, though. Dr. Kunjufu, and he was talking about the fact that if black boys are not reading at grade level by 4th grade, there's a 20% chance. That's all that they will be reading, that they will be at grade level when they graduate. Now we all know about social graduation and moving and all of that. But why are black boys in particular struggling? So, what do you think?
I think society, just the stigmas that are out there is society, and we need to give a little more attention to that. Focus on our African American boys to see how can we as adults, as educators, community partners, how can we love on them so that they will have that love for reading and that we can get them on grade level. I just think it's a social stigma maybe that could be. Do
you deal with a lot of boys in your
in the schools that I work with, yes, and they are
more so than girls.
It's kind of a balance, but you see the boys are a little more resistant. But that's when you tap into what they like. A lot of them are into sports, and so if we can find a book that's related around sports, then they're more open to read the book.
Okay. So what's the biggest struggle that you all see when you're teaching these children to read, when you're working in schools, when you were in the classroom, Veronica? What was the biggest struggle for them in terms of reading? Do you know? I mean, is it because they just didn't know the words, or was it sounding it out, or was it comprehending?
I think a lot of it's foundational. Yeah, because... So I taught kindergarten and first. So the first grade was my last 13 years of my 40 years I was there. And so I saw that a lot of kids that came from the kindergarten, because I taught kindergarten, I kind of expected that they would get those same things I taught 13 years ago. But they don't get those foundational skills anymore. A lot of skills are skipped. Whereas back in the day, you taught one letter a week, and you ate that letter, you wore that letter, you did whatever to make sure they got that letter and that sound within it. Now we're going straight to reading. Not saying that everyone does that, but some people think, okay, you know what, my child can read at 2 years old. All right, well, can they tell me the sound? Do they know the strategy that goes along? The sound on a word they don't know. Can they figure out the pattern, how to sound that word? Do you know that when you can look at O and O can make different sounds? Do you know that? Sure. They don't know those things. I had a child, again, my last year, he could read on the 4th grade level, could not comprehend, and could not spell.
So just being able to say the words is not reading.
No,
reading
is
what is
deeper.
reading?
It's the having that comprehension. And I learned from old school that grades K to 2, those are your foundational skills. And when you go to 3rd grade, that's where you're applying what you learn in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, so that you can build your fluency, build your vocabulary, build that comprehension skills. But with today's society, we're beginning to see that our teachers in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are having to do some of those foundational skills. And so we're unsure of like where the disconnect is. But like I mentioned with the science of reading now. And so we're looking at the science base of how reading is coming to. And I'm going to say it's old school how I learned to read. Okay. Like with those Dick and Jane. And so we're having to go back to how we learn to read in order to get our children in today's society to learn to read now. And so it's unfortunate that those upper house teachers are having to teach those foundational skills, but we're strong. The educators are strong, and we're going to band together so that we can close that gap. because we want to be able to say when my child goes to third grade, they're applying what they learned in Miss Jones's class or Miss Smith's class in kindergarten so that they can read those those books on grade level.
Exactly. You know, it's something that was very interesting. I wrote my granddaughter a note in cursive.
We just had that conversation this morning.
And she couldn't read it. And she can read. She's an avid reader. And she said, Grandma, I can't read this because we didn't learn cursive in school. So, I mean, I'm just curious what you all's feelings are about cursive versus, I mean, everything is print. I get it. Everything's on the screen. The kids are using computers in school. But don't we still need to know how to sign our names?
Yeah. We knew, and Veronica and I were talking about that today. We have ELA new SOL standards, and so one of the standards is to be able to write in cursive and for them to write their signature. And so we were talking about how during COVID, everything was digital.
Yes.
And so when our children came back to school, back into the brick and mortar, they had very weak fine motor skills because they were just used to typing on the computer. They didn't have to pick up a crayon. They didn't have to pick up a pencil because everything was digital. And so that when they did come back into the schools post-COVID, we had to rebuild their fine motor skills of how to hold a pencil. And this was in some of the upper grades as well, where we had to show you how to do that proper pencil grip and putting that pencil to paper. And so it's a process. Because we are a technology-driven world, and so we feel like that we don't have to. But when our children go out into the real world and to apply for jobs or to sign documents, they have to be able to sign their signature. Yeah. And so that's very important. I know I went to private school, and so cursive was big. That was big time. I thought I was doing something right in cursive. Like, Mommy, look, I can write in cursive. But we have to get back into those old school, those fundamental, foundational things.
Those motor skills are very important. We just assume not, but they are. I mean, it's something simple. It's coloring. The children, I mean, they should be, like I said, that group that came to me, the last group, they had no idea what coloring was. They were still scribbling. Baby, take a crayon, you stay within the line. I was teaching first graders how to color, how to print your name, because those motor skills weren't there anymore because they lost preschool, kindergarten, and here they're walking in first grade. Now, I'm assuming that you know how to do this stuff. Nope. You're at home on a computer. But those simple things, get a coloring book. You don't have a coloring book, get a piece of paper and some crayon. Make sure they can do those things. Playing with Play-Doh, playing inside of shaving cream. It's all kind of, taking some
all of that makes a difference in terms of their ability to learn.
And even the golf pencils, instead of using the bigger pencils, use the golf pencils. Because it's going to give them that pencil grip that they need to put that pencil to paper, and it's going to build their motor skills in their hands.
Gotcha. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Francis joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Francis.
Good afternoon, and hi, Barbara.
Hi.
I'm this Knight Thompson, a retired educator from Virginia Beach City Public Schools, but my husband and I have a small ministry in the city of Portsmouth, and I was privileged to go to the screening of the documentary "The Right to Read."
Yes.
Kareem Weaver.
Oh, my life was changed forever. The crisis of literacy for Black children just came to the highlight, but the main point was what you were saying, that phonics work for Black children and versus the whole language curriculum. And so that's really been one of my stickler points in the last few weeks. We've been given a grant to do a reading enrichment program for the children of Portsmouth, and it's because one of the 14-year-old children of my ministry had to go upstairs and look for the color of the bottle because he couldn't read the word shampoo. And I found out that he was reading on maybe a second grade level at age 14. So that was just one example. I had 4 boys, and all of them were unable to read. They were students of Portsmouth Public Schools. So I'm committed. Let me tell you, I am on fire.
Oh, that is fantastic.
I'm going to change the whole city of Portsmouth. Let me tell you, right by myself.
Francis, Frances, thank you so much for that call. We really appreciate it. She was talking about the WHRO actually did the screening of the film The Right to Read
with Green Weaver, yes.
back in August of 2023. Yeah. And it was a very powerful documentary. I think you can still find it at WHRO.org. But she talks about the fact that she is committed. Community. What role does community play in all of this to help our children read? Veronica, let's start with you.
Was it Francis?
Yeah.
Francis said that the community, you had the community. Back in the day, you had the churches. We still do. I said back then, we do have the churches, and we make sure you incorporate the Sunday school teachers to do that. You got the neighbor next door. You got the community centers. But it all goes back to that training, like the parental training. If we could just get those parents who don't know, come out here, let me show you how to teach your baby. Let me teach. I think that's foundational there. The teachers are going to do the best they can do, but from 9 to 4, they're with us. But from 4-1 to the next morning, they're at home. So what are they getting from home?
And they need that reinforcement.
And they need that reinforcement from home. I'm not saying go home and spend all day long, doing more work, but have fun. Have fun with it, We're going to get a book. Maybe we're going to read pages 1 and 2 today, but we're going to read, Let the parents know, get them more involved in what they need to do.
Absolutely.
And let the parents know that we're not there. We're there to support them. A lot of parents are kind of standoffish when it comes to reading because sometimes they can't help their children with their homework. And so inadvertently,
so they become embarrassed, and the kids become embarrassed, and it trickles down.
And then the children will come, and as educators, we're like, okay, everybody pull out their homework, but you have that one child will say, well, my mom wasn't able to help me, and that's when you have to take off your teacher hat and say, I'm going to help your mom. And if the parents know that we're there to help them as well, then that community, that parent-teacher relationship is going to blossom.
And I always kept a box. The homework, you had to read every night. I don't have books in my house. We always had a box. Take what you need. Don't bring it back. Build a library at your house. We always kept a box.
Just a box of books.
I just kept a box of books in my room, and I call them the homework box. Do you need books for homework tonight? Get what you need. Take all you need. It cleaned out my clutter, but it took what it needed. Speaking of that, let me tell you this about Dolly Parton. Are you familiar with the Dolly Parton reading program?
Yes. Imagination.
Yes, they give out free books every month. So parents can go and sign this up. It's mostly through the public libraries.
So you could probably Google free books and find a variety of
But Dolly Parton
of
sends
things.
books to my grandsons every single month.
Oh, wow.
So it's
also,
really cool.
The Reach Foundation in Norfolk, you can go there with Jennifer Goff and get free books. I know at one of my schools where I was the literacy coach, we did birthday books for the children, and we ensured that when the children had their birthday, they had a free book to take home.
Okay, speaking of free books, let's talk to Katie Ann in Virginia Beach.
Good afternoon, Barbara and ladies.
Hi.
I was just going to be giving you a heads up about the Big Free Bookstore, which is one of Reach's programs.
Yep.
And they're located in Jam Shopping Center. They are serving children ages 0 to 17, especially children who are underserved. And the kiddos can get 2 free new books per week and 2 free used books per week. And they can visit twice a week as well.
Wow. Okay, that's in Janum Shopping Center called the Free Bookstore. Okay, thank you.
That's my child.
We appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
Steveland.
Steveland is your child?
Yes.
Okay, Steveland. Let's talk to Steveland very quickly. We only got about 5 minutes left. Steveland, you're on the air.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. How are you?
You're doing good.
Outstanding. Well, I just called to say that I appreciate my mother and everything that she's done for me as a child when it comes to, even with the reading stuff, the Book It programs, Goosebumps, R.L. Stein, Boxcar Kids, all those different things from reading, not saying double negatives in the house, all those different things that I learned from my mother growing up and how she's implementing that with my 2 sons, so Lennox and Tyson, and how she's just super active and intricate in her ways of learning them how to read and write, and she's not lying about the book and the ball. That little boy would bring that book to you, put the finger on that ball, and he said, listen, you're going to read me this book, okay? So I wanted to say that I'm proud of you. And you're so cute on the radio. I can hear your little voice, your little I just wanted to say that.
I wish the audience could see her. She's actually blushing.
Love you, son.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you, Stephen.
The whole time.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the call. We appreciate that. That is so sweet. Okay, I got to get this in because they will kill me here at WHRO if I don't. But Miss Martha reads. I've got to tell you all about it. This is a great way to get story time in. Miss Martha Reads airs every Friday at 10 a.m. on WHRO's Facebook page, and it can also be viewed on YouTube at whro.org/Martha Reads. So that is another resource that is available right here. WHRO TV 15, all kinds of children's programming all day long that will teach you and to help increase the vocabulary, teach your children to read. And Martha says, because she is a early childhood educator, she says also keep it simple. Let the children read to each other as buddies because they must practice. So she sent a bunch of different things. And she said, give parents a little guidance and please be patient. Yes. So we've got 3 minutes left, a little less than 3 minutes. Final advice that you would give to anyone who has a young person in their lives in terms of reading. I'll start with you, Veronica.
Make it fun. Just make it fun. Get those stuffed animals out. Get those cards out. Put the letters on the cards. Put the cards in ABC order. Get those stuffed animals. Play school. Read to your. We just have fun.
Just have fun with it.
Just have fun. Doesn't cost a dime to have fun.
There you go. And
read together daily. Read as a family. Go to the library and just put your child on your lap and have that love for reading. I just can just visualize in my head. I'm 50 years old now, but I can still remember my mom and I reading The Monster at the end of the book. It's a Sesame Street book. It's a golden book. And just sitting in her lap and her reading to me. And even today, that still sticks with me because my mom took the time out to read to me, and that builds relationships with a parent and a child in that intimate environment of reading. I was going to say,
that is something that is so important because in this busy world, and I get it, parents are working 2 and 3 jobs, they're stressed and so forth, but if you can just take 5-10 minutes to pay that child attention and read to them, and let them read to you. That creation, that bond is so very special.
Those bedtime stories. Do they do bedtime stories anymore? Just before you, even in the bathtub, just having books in the bathroom and reading to your child, and then tucking them in for the night with a good book.
Or either reading part of the book and say, we're gonna read the next part tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Get some more excited.
Feel that excitement
for the next day. Yeah.
Thank you, Kimberly Brown-McCray, District Reading Specialist with Portsmouth Public Schools, and Veronica Jones, a retired Portsmouth Public Schools teacher. Thank you both very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, no problem. And audience, before we let you go, I do want to tell you about Project Nana's Awards Breakfast. Now, this is happening this Saturday. Ooh, I can't see it. From 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the Sheraton Norfolk Waterside Hotel in downtown Norfolk. And this is the inaugural Gwen Ifill Seasoned Women's Champion Award. And it is being given to Joanne Jenkins, the CEO of AARP, for her hard work with women and after menopause issues that women, gynecological issues that women face. And if you remember Gwen Ifill, who was a mainstay with PBS and others, she was a revered journalist known for her dedication for fair and unbiased reporting, and her impactful career and advocacy for underrepresented communities continued to inspire many. And Ifill passed away in 2016 from endometrial cancer. So this is why they've named this program for her. So come on out. It is this Saturday, the 7th, from 7 to 9 a.m. For more information, you can go to projectnana.org, projectnana.org. Now, we encourage you to help the young people in your life improve their reading skills and develop a love for reading. You can find this show and all of our podcasts at anotherviewradio.org, Spotify, or anywhere you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, the Another View Roundtable with their thoughts on next week's presidential candidates debate. That ought to be interesting. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Early voting starts this month. Are you registered to vote? Time to get busy. Be sure to join us again next Thursday at noon for another view.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.